So we have a great speaker here with us tonight. Brent Franklin is a dedicated cross timbers master naturalist from class of 2013. Raised on a cattle ranch, Brent developed a deep appreciation for the natural world early in life. He later served in the U.S. Army and Army National Guard for 9 years before turning his focus to conservation and education. A lifelong birding enthusiast, Brent discovered the Texas Master Naturalist program during a guided bird walk and quickly became immersed in the field. During his training, he developed a passion for odonates, dragonflies and damselflies, leading him to travel across Texas to study, document, and photograph these fascinating species. Brent has served as president of the Cross Timbers Master Naturalist chapter and remains an active member of the Education Committee. When he's not in the field, he enjoys landscape photography, spending time outdoors, always eager to share his knowledge and enthusiasm for nature.
There we go. Okay. So the wonderful world of Odonata. So if anyone doesn't know, Odonata is the order, class, family, all that stuff. I don't know the science again, like I said. Is the order. Odonata covers dragonflies and damselflies. Odonata is from the Greek, Latin, Hebrew, whatever word that means toothed ones. So odo for tooth and nata, or however that's separated there. But it means toothed ones because if you look at their face, they have these really sharp teeth-looking mandibles that they eat with, and they can put a pretty good pinch on you. So then, does anyone know this dragonfly? Extra 5 points on the quiz at the end if you know this. Anyone know what that is? I'll give you the hint. That is our Master Naturalist logo. So that is the, Nose guy, close enough. I'll give you the points. So Cyrano darner. This is a Cyrano darner. You can see the big fronds there that really protrude, so it gets the name Cyrano from that, I guess. Up, went backwards. So in the ordered Odonata, you've got two suborders, which is Anisoptera. Anis mean equal and optera the wings. So on dragonflies, you're going to have on the wings, the front and the back are not the same size. You can see there's always a wider part close to the body of the dragonfly on the back hind wings versus the front wings are more uniform. And then the next suborder is the Zygoptera, which is equal wings. And the wings are always the same size, all four of them. The dragonflies, dragonflies tend, man, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, dragonflies tend to almost always, remember, there's always exceptions, but almost always in dragonflies, land with their wings held out to the side like a plane landing, versus damselflies almost always fold their wings up over their back. Always exceptions to rules, so don't take those rules to heart. So for those who don't know, hopefully some of you will be amazed by it, but dragonflies are actually, and damselflies, are aquatic creatures, meaning they spend the bulk of their life underwater. Their larval stage, they are hatched from the eggs and live underwater. In some cases, some species are known to live up to 5 years underwater before they emerge as adults. Of course, the adult phase, just like butterflies, is not very long-lived for most species. These are all examples of larvae, nymphs, naiads is the word that's typically used for an underwater nymph, if you will. So these are all ones that I found, a couple of examples there on my hands. So that one is a damselfly. These are all dragons. The damselfly, you'll note one of the things here, I was just talking over here earlier, they have, so as aquatic creatures, they have gills. These are their gills. They're three little leaf-like structures on the back end of them. If you're looking at them down through a microscope, like that's why we were talking about it, you see three lines, but from the side you can see they're almost leaf-like shapes. The dragonflies themselves breathe through their gills, which are on the side of their body, by puffing their body up and drawing water in through their rectum and breathing and then forcing it out through their gills. They have a neat way of escaping in that if they need to escape a predator, they can do that and forcefully eject it and squirt a jet behind them to escape with a rapid up right there. So my wonderful daughter drew this for me. I asked her to draw me a simple picture and she went over the top like she always does. This is when she was like 10 years old or something. to give an example of how they feed underwater. So they have this little thing, I say it looks like an alien, like the movie Aliens. Everybody remember that, where it shoots out? They have this little lip here, then we're on their end of their mandible called a labrum. And the labrum grabs the prey, pulls it back to their labium, pulls it back to their labrum, which is their mouth underneath, and then holds it up against their mouth while they chew and eat the prey that they've captured. Hopefully this works. If it does, this shoots out in lightning speed. And when I say lightning, I'm talking, whoop, it's there, it's done, it's gone. I mean, you don't see it. Hopefully this video works. I've embedded here for us to be able to see this. I don't know that it will, but hopefully. If I don't trip and kill myself first. Yes. So this is a particular dragonfly. I'm going to get a look at what it looks like. And he's thinking about it. He's thinking about it. Ready, go. Come on, eat it. And you all saw that, right? Okay, that's how fast it is. Okay. Now it actually shows it in slow motion, so you can see it. Huh? Slow it down just a little. So pretty darn amazing, I think. Just really pretty darn amazing. Okay, now let's see if it'll let me go ahead without having to do anything. And it worked. No. I think I just backed up the video. Uh-oh. Am I going to be able to go forward on the slide? There we go. Now maybe it'll work. So here's an example of a dragonfly called a calico pennant. So when you're looking at dragonflies, different dragonflies like different types of habitat, and they have different habits that they do, and so on and so forth. So calico pennants, East Texas species. But what I really want to show you here is this is a beautifully brilliant colored male calico pennant. If you're a bird, how many birders are in here, bird fans? Okay, you know that the males are typically more colorful and they look completely different. What's that word? Sexual dimorphism, different from the females. That's also the case in dragonflies. So the males tend to be more colorful. There are a few species where I think the females are prettier, but that also is the case in birds for me. So this is the male calico pennant, that's the female. Still a beautiful, beautiful specimen, but you just have the beautiful bright reds versus the yellows and blacks. So still beautiful, but just to show you the sexual dimorphism there is this example here. So now we're going to look at, so those are pennants. They're rather more or less average sized dragonflies. We get into the larger ones, we start talking about the clubtails. So this one I know it says leaftail, but it is in the clubtail genus or Gomphus genus. So they're called clubtails, or in this case leaftail, because they have this larger club-looking almost size to the very end of their thorax there, abdomen, excuse me. Forgive me when I mess up my words. I'm old and I get things stumble over my words. So one of the reasons I kind of am showing this one in particular too is when you're identifying dragonflies in the field, they're beautiful, but there are certain things you have to look at, and sometimes it can be a real challenge. So one of the reasons I got into dragonflies, I remember when I first met one of my first mentor, and he said, what you've been focusing on? I met him in person, I should say. I've been talking to him online and stuff through Naturalists. He said, what were you focusing on today? And I said, well, I've been working a lot lately here on my dragonflies in flight. And he goes, boy, you do like a challenge, don't you? Yes, I do. So sometimes it's a challenge to determine the different species. So in this case, you have the 4-striped leaftail and the 5-striped leaftail. They're very, very, very hard to tell the difference. And the only way you're going to is if you get this lateral shot to be able to count the stripes on the side. And even then, it can kind of be difficult. So like I said, here, I don't have the lateral shot. There are other things you can use to tell the segments. A big part of it often comes into the segments on the, abdomen. come into play. They're numbered for dragonfly aficionados. There's 10 segments on every dragonfly's abdomen. And so you're looking at, for whatever reason, I don't understand why they decided to put S as in segments versus like A. You know, why just use what it's called? It's the abdomen 1 through 10. Instead, it's S 1 through 10. So you're talking about, okay, you got on S3 here, you got the line versus here you don't have a line. Sometimes that comes into play on your identification. So you have to know which species have these different looks to their abdomens, as well as, like I said, the stripes on the thorax. So this is a Halloween pennant. And here you have the male and female mating, or in copula, making the wheel, as we call it. So at this point, she has brought up her genitalia to his, and they're actually in the process of mating. So when they first come together, the dragonflies will join at the back of the head. The male has, oops, what am I doing? I want to go back, not forward. The male has at the end, they both have what's called cerci at the end, but the male has a very large cerci. Those two little prong-looking things there, they're like a key. For species, each one has a specific shape and type of or look to their cerci that allows them to capture a female of their species. Another species cannot capture a female of another species because they don't have the matching cerci. They can try, but they're not going to be able to hold on to her throughout the mating process. So once they've come together and found a willing partner, they're able to capture, but it locks in behind the head of the female, and she's now captured. They are joined together. They've gotten hitched. They're married, however you want to look at it. And so they fly together at that point, what we call in tandem. So you'll see, if you see dragonflies, one's kind of looks like they're right in a train, right behind each other, one right behind the other. That's the tandem. They are joined. They're hitched, but they're not conjugating, you know, that night. So having their first wedding night thing there. So once they've done that, then they're able to go out and lay eggs. So we'll get a little bit more into that. But so here's another special species, one of my favorites, ebony jewelwing. This is actually literally one of the ones that got me going. I have to see one of those, and started hunting and chasing dragonflies because they are beautiful. They're more East Texas, south of us. They can be found at Leela. If you ever go out to Leela, there's kind of a disjunct population that can be found at Leela. But then you've got the sparkling jewel wing. So it can be confusing. Again, they're exactly the same looking, except for this one only has the black on the very top tips of the wings there. Back tips, or outside tips, I guess is the way you'd really word that. Desert firetail, one of my favorites. They are just a brilliant, brilliant red, but they're tiny. They're one of the smallest damselflies. So it's like looking for a bright neon red needle in a haystack. So with these, they're going to be found in thicker vegetation along of water ponds and so on. You're not going to find them along streams. Like I said, different dragonfly species are going to have different habitats they prefer. These are a pond damsel. They're going to be in knee-high or less vegetation, but thick vegetation, kind of hanging out down in their low. I guess I'll give away some of my tips tonight and hints, but one of the things I like to do if I'm really wanting to try and find damselflies, I'll walk along and just brush the tops of the vegetation with my foot. And if something stirs, flies up, you can then follow where it goes and lands and get a picture of it. Neon skimmer, another example of bright, brilliant red. This picture does no justice to it when you see one of these guys. It is neon red. They're beautiful, beautiful animals, or insects. I mean, critters, that's the way I'm going to use Sam's word, critters. So painted skimmer, another one that's really gorgeous. They tend to land. So again, I talked about different habits and so on. I'm kind of getting ahead of myself a little bit, or behind one or two, but the five-striped leaf-tail, if y'all notice, it's kind of was hanging up that way. These tend to almost always will land more flat like this on vegetation. Clubtails, we talked about the leaf-tails are clubtails, but they're not called clubtails. These are more kind of looking at clubtails. Clubtails will almost always, remember exceptions, land on the ground. So you'll see them on the ground is where you're going to spot them, on a flat surface. Pretty much almost never see them up on vegetation. You will, but it's very uncommon. And again, you're looking at the difference. So here we have the Oklahoma clubtail. And you can look at another clubtail, they all look really similar. This is the cocoa clubtail. Okay, what's the difference? There's some subtle things you have to kind of be able to know which ones you're looking at. Common sand dragon, still a clubtail, much, much larger size than those other two. This is a really big guy, and they are awesome. I love common sand dragons. But one of the things they're known for is they always have this real pale cerci, and they're really large and like swollen looking on the cerci on these guys. They're found they're gonna be down in like slow moving streams with a sandy bottom, and they're sitting on the sand within the stream bed, looking at almost always too, facing the water. That's a weird thing about them. It's like they're not looking away from the water. They're almost always looking at the water. So then we have my very favorite of the clubtails is the cobra clubtail, called, named appropriately. It looks like a cobra because it really flares out on that clubtail there at the end. So this one in particular does perch up in vegetation, not on the ground. So exception to the rule. You can find them on the ground. I have photographed them on the ground, but I seem to always more often find them kind of hanging up into vegetation. Salis is sun dragon, however you say that word. I say Salis, I don't know. Named after somebody. I love these guys because they're just real furry looking. I don't know what it is. They just have all these hairs on their body that makes them real furry looking. I think they're and they are really bright, vibrant color. This picture doesn't do justice to the particular specific species. And they're found very kind of a narrow range, real deep East Texas woods. This one was out towards Jasper, Texas, where I found this one. So we talked about, now here's the exception to the rule on damselflies, the spread wing family or group. They always have their wings spread. Sometimes they'll fold them, but it's very, very uncommon. They spread their wings out to their side. That's just the way they land. It looks like a dragonfly, and they're really big. So this particular one is really big. It's really an elegant green color, why it's called the elegant. More East Texas as well. Southern spread wing, very common around our area here. Again, the wings spread out to the side. So I mentioned, I've gone around the state, or it was mentioned I go around the state and I chase after dragonflies. So right now about 163 species for the state. So I was going somewhere with that. So I'm going to get into some stories about different things. And one of the things I always like to talk about is why do I like them so much? I mean, I've mentioned a few different things. One of the things I like about them is they'll eat anything like me. So here's a few pictures of just some of the things they'll chomp down on. So here you have a cobra clubtail in this case with a butterfly that it has captured. I saw it capture it and take it up the leaf and watch it chomp down and chow down on that sucker. And of course, you'll notice it's focusing on the body, and it'll let the wings fall down to the ground, when it's done there. Here you have a female eastern pond hawk eating another female eastern pond hawk. So again, they'll eat anything they can catch. The other one might have been from the coloration of the body, things you learn to recognize. That probably was a much more recently emerged from the ground. Eastern pond hawk female, or maybe it's a young male. They haven't gotten its colors yet. And so she caught it before it was fully prepared. Just like you've seen butterflies or what have you, where the wings are still wet and they can't fly real strong yet. They got to let them dry. That happens. That's the same thing with dragonflies. They'll come out, once they're fully emerged, they'll take a maiden flight real short and weak somewhere low to the ground, and then sit more in the sun to be able to dry out their wings and be fully ready to fly. She may have just seen that going, aha, you're mine. One thing I forgot to when I was talking about the exuvia and the fact that they are aquatic creatures, I meant to pass these around. I'll go ahead and start passing these around now since I just remembered. But here's some examples of some exuvia. If y'all just want to take a closer look, I'll just kind of get them started and y'all can kind of just pass them around and take a look. So here's an eastern pond hawk with a damselfly, more common. They're going to catch things smaller than themselves. However, like you saw, that one had another eastern pond hawk, so they can capture larger prey. There have been documented photos and videos taken of some of the larger dragonfly species taking hummingbirds. So again, they will eat anything they can catch. So here's an eastern pond hawk with, I think, a female common whitetail. Female common whitetails are one of the ones where you start getting a little bit of trouble to identify. Damselflies, you notice I didn't really put any pictures of female damselflies in there to show you the difference. They all look the same. Oh my gosh, it's impossible to tell the difference on female damselflies. So it's just when you see one of those, it's like, okay, yeah, it's a female. Which one? You can say most likely. Right now, we're mostly seeing this one out here, so it's probably that one, but I don't know. There are ways to tell, and it can be done. Some people are much more likely to say, yeah, I'm certain that's this, whereas I'm more likely to go, it's a female. So here is a Ramber's fork-tailed damselfly eating another damselfly. And this one I thought was interesting because normally they take the body where all the musculature and everything is first. For some reason it chewed off the body, which has fallen down here, and it's showing down on the tail, on the abdomen. And I don't understand that. That was really odd to me. That's why I definitely focused on this picture. I was like, why did it not eat all that meat and just letting it drop to the ground there? That's odd. Comet darner. So when I talk about the challenge of photographing dragonflies in flight, this is one of your challenges. Darners in particular are one that seem to almost never land. They are always on the wing. The only time you really see them land is maybe if they're mated and they're ovipositing, laying their eggs in the water. Comet darners are named not because they look like a green comet with a red, the tail is really bright neon red when you see the picture well or see them in the wild, but they move like a comet. Those things are so fast. And they just zip past you and they zip on by and they keep on going and keep on going. So darners are like that. Some darners, all right, another one of my hints and tips for you. So dragonflies have an area they patrol or guard. They're very territorial. Darners tend to have a very large territory, but if you watch them and you're patient long enough, you'll find that when they're patrolling their territory, at some point they're going to have a point where they turn around. And when they reach that point, they pause for a minute and hover. So you keep watching them, you figure out where's their turnaround point, you go over there, you focus in and get ready for them and watch for them to come, and you'll have a split second or two to try and get your photo before they take off. Otherwise, you're panning and going, ah, there it went again. Where's he at? Where's he at? And then that one time they saw somebody on the territory, so they chase it off and didn't come right back in front of you, and you see them and they're already past you over there instead of coming back the way they were going earlier. You're like, come on. So it is an exercise in patience or just trying to drive yourself mad, whichever you want to look at it. My wife always goes, but patience, you, what? So this is a common white-tailed female. Different dragonflies have different ways of laying their eggs or ovipositing. So in this particular case, this female is tapping her abdomen down into the water, and each time she taps the water, she releases an egg, and it goes into that droplet of water and splashes up onto the mud there on that little muddy surface. And the egg is planted there to either when it comes in more water and floods it over, or when it emerges, it'll go straight down into the water beneath it. But that's their particular strategy. So you can see the droplet right there. There's probably an egg in that droplet. So I talked about how they mate. They're locked in on this with their cerci. Different dragonflies, again, also have different strategies. Usually the male is guarding the female in some way during her ovipositing, because if another male comes along and is able to capture her with his cerci, they have the ability to remove the previous male's deposit and then spread their genes through their own deposit and mate with the female again. So the male tends to guard it. So in the case of this particular species, the male, I've zoomed in on this. I have the other photos, of course, where the male is circling around her, patrolling over her, watching her oviposit. So different species do it different ways. In the case of the saddlebags, they stay joined. He releases her, she drops to the water, deposits an egg, and comes back up. And he grabs her. So here you see where he's just he's grabbed a hold of her, he's bringing his abdomen up to capture her again with his cerci. And it's fast, it's really fast. He lets her go, she drops down, she oviposits, she comes back up, and they move on. So a male will try to come in and knock them down. I have seen all three of them tumble into the water. Now they've got wet wings, they're struggling to try to get out of the water and get going and get airborne again. And then see who wins as far as the males, which one grabs her first once they get airborne, if they manage to all three get back out of the water. Only once have I gotten a shot. Only once. I'd heard of it before happening. But sometimes another male will come along and he really is desperately wanting to mate. For whatever reason, end of his life he knows is coming, he'll grab the other male with his cerci and lock in behind the male's head and try to drag him around and shake the female loose, make that guy want to let her go. So I've only photographed it once with common green darners, which are our most common around here. They're almost year-round, where I saw 3 of them go by me joined together, and I'm like, what in the world? I had heard of it, but I'd never seen it, and it blew my mind. I was like, that's not possible. Yes, it is. So that's the black saddlebags, and then you have the red saddlebags as well. So those are the 2 saddlebags that are most common. We also have Carolina saddlebags, very uncommon striped saddlebags in our area, particularly. So again, I told you they'll eat just about anything they can catch. Dragonflies are scientifically proven to have a 95 to 97% success rate on whatever they go after to eat. That much of a success. There's all kinds of studies. Again, I'm not here to bore you with science tonight, but one of the cool things that I think is awesome about them, they have these little fine hairs on the back of their head capsule and on the front of their thorax that can interlock and allow them, once they're focused in on their prey, their head just stays solidly focused on that prey. In this picture, I love this picture, you're looking at the top of the body and the head is focused straight forward, and that's the top of the head. So the mouth is right here, there's the top of the body totally turned towards the camera while the head's moving straight forward. Each of the wings on a dragonfly is joined to a separate muscle group. As opposed to all being joined together, each wing is separately, individually joined to a muscle group, 100% independent of each other. They can operate each wing in any way, shape, or form they want. They're able to fly forward, backward, straight, upside down, hover, all of the above on a moment's notice. So they can change the angle of their body and move, which again, try taking a picture of them in flight. Tell me what you think. It's fun. It is really fun. I love doing it. I don't do it a lot. I do enjoy doing it. They move, documented up to about 35 miles an hour. So that bug is moving 35 miles an hour when it wants to in a burst anyway to get to the prey. With its head focus locked on, it has certain parts of its eyes that are where almost like the crosshairs are locked. Those do not take away from that, and they do not move off of the prey. And they can move and do whatever they need to do with the angles of their bodies and their wings to be able to get locked in and get on that prey. Orange threadtail, I just put this in here because that's another one of the really neat damselflies. These guys, their mating strategy, I don't think I put a picture in here because I took out so many pictures, was going through this kind of going, what do I want to leave in, what do I want to not leave in, so that we can move through this without taking till 10 o'clock. When they mate and they're joined in tandem, after the female gets ready to oviposit, they look for floating wood. That's the only thing they're going to lay their eggs on is the underside of floating wood. So she lands on the floating wood and is ovipositing underneath it, underneath the water, on the bottom side of that wood. He continues to flap his wings so that they're moving around like a little boat going around. It's hilarious. I'm like, why are they doing? That's so weird, but it is hilarious to watch. It just was really cool. I only saw these once down in down around Uvalde is where I got this guy. Okay, so we're going to talk about some storage now. So I showed you the one picture of my daughter. All these pictures are mine except for, okay, here, I'm going to admit, y'all don't get me in trouble. I know this is, hopefully it's not recorded and I don't get in trouble, but I stole this picture. But from the website for Estero Llano Grande State Park or whatever that's called down there in the valley. So if you haven't been, but this is what it looks like. So here's one of the stories of one of my trips where we went looking for specific dragonfly. Okay, I told you they all have different ways they land and perch and so on. So darners always perch. They're going to always be up like this. So their wings are straight out like this, like a cross, if you will. Just always. That's the way they land. That's the way they perch, period. So we're down here in the valley. It gets hot. Particular dragonfly which we're looking for tend to perch during the day and fly only early morning, late evening when it's cooler, because it's just too hot to be moving around. They go into this Spanish moss and perch. That's where they hide from the heat of the day. So we're down here looking for this species where we have to go and look into this Spanish moss. It's dark, it's shadowy. These guys are colored in such a way to help them blend in. So there's 4 of us, if I remember right, this particular day. A couple of us walking the edge of the trail in case they get flushed. One guy was literally on his knees crawling through at a couple of points to kind of get things to see if he could spot one. And our guide back in there walking through the Spanish moss, and we trade off and what have you. But we're going along looking for this dragonfly. So we found one. Everybody see it, right? You can see it hanging right there on that, up underneath that Spanish moss in the shadow. So I had to really brighten it up. But that just shows you the challenge on some of the species. You have to know the habitat, know how and where to find them, and be willing to travel and go farther afield to look for the different ones. So these are valley specialties. They're not anywhere else but the valley. So there's multiple species that are that way down there. Texas has 241, if I remember right at last count, species. Some of them are one-offs that only have just like literally come across in the valley or what have you across the border, and we're seeing once or whatever, maybe a couple of times at most. So yeah, you have to be willing to travel and go down there. Hopefully I'll get down there again in the fall for a few that I still haven't seen. So here's another story of a traveling trip. So this is down near Jasper, but one of my friends, mentor, professor down at San Marcos, Texas State, couldn't think of the word. He knew this one particular species loves and focuses on being around sphagnum peat moss swampy areas, right, wetlands. But they like to be around sphagnum peat moss. So he was looking around the state, and he kind of was looking at this area because he had, I don't know if he said he saw a report of one over here before, he just thought this would be a good area. But so he starts looking at the Google map, starts zooming in, and he found, yep, there's a sphagnum peat moss bog. So these are all dots now, ones that we saw subsequently after that. But so he found this and went down there. So now we're going down there to look for this dragonfly. He had gone down and found him already, so he agreed to, yeah, I'll take you down there. We'll go find it for you. So the first time he couldn't go, the first weekend I went, it took me 3 weekends in a row to finally get these guys. There's 2 different species. They both are the same habitat area right here. And he tells me, okay, here's what you got to do. These guys perch on trees, on the pine trees here in deep East Texas. And when they perch on the tree, again, they're straight up and down, they're darners. But when they perch, they're so well camouflaged, you're not going to see them. They're camouflaged to blend into those pine trees. So you have to flush them. He's like, so what you're going to want to do is you're going to walk through the woods and flap your arms like a chicken or a bird. So don't make me look stupid. Everybody else do it with me. You're walking through the woods going like this, trying to get those things to fly off the tree. Then lock onto it with your eyes and watch, because he's told me, and I didn't believe him, when they come to the tree they want to perch on, unlike most of the time dragonflies come up, they kind of hover, they look for the good, okay, I'm landed now. He said, these things will look like they ran into the tree and killed themselves. It's like, whoop, slap. They're just there. You do not see them. And he was not kidding. First time I saw one, I went, no way. It just went boom. And I'm like, how did that thing land on that tree without killing itself? That is crazy. So now we're walking through the East Texas piney woods. Where's Waldo? There is one on that tree, I'm telling you right now. And remember, you're looking at these trees, and they usually perch a little above head height. So we're looking for it, going, where is it? I'm going to zoom in a little bit for you. Anybody see it now? How about now? So there it is. If I zoom back out, so he is right. Now I have to go right there. Right there. No, right there, actually. There he is, right there. See, that's how tricky it is. Even I know he's there. I have to go, wait, where is he? Right there. So there it is, right there, hanging on the tree. Totally blended in and just splat onto the tree. You have to really be watching. The only other way you're going to find them is to hopefully catch a glint of sun coming off their wings if they're in the sun. They tend to, of course, want to be on the sunny side to keep their energy charged up for when they go chasing after prey. The other one, this is a little bit easier to see maybe, but they're still, these particular ones have more orange to them. So they're looking for lichen spots. This one was actually pretty low down, so we actually spotted it pretty easy. But he's right there, just blended in with that. He knew to land in that. It's like he knew. There's orange lichen. I got to land in that orange lichen right there. So we're just walking. So we saw that one. One of our groups saw that one fly up. And thank you, I'm going back. Thank you. Fly up and just splat on that tree again. Unfortunately, in this one, it landed below knee level, which is uncommon. Both of them normally land above head height. So we're like, oh, well, that's an easy one, yay, because that's the other species we hadn't seen yet that day, and we've been walking around for hours out there. So the two of them are the harlequin darner and the taper-tailed darner. So I was able to get a good picture of that one side view to really kind of give you a better look at it. And that's a female because I told you they all have the cerci, but you can see this one has a very tiny little cerci there. It's not pronounced like on a male. Largest dragonfly in Texas, the dragon hunter. It's in its own genus. There's nothing else in that genus but the dragon hunter. Called dragon hunter because, yes, they mostly kind of tend to eat other dragonflies. That is kind of a specialty for them. They are really, really big. You won't mistake it for something else. When you see it, you're going, wow, that's a big dragonfly. It's the moment where you look at the thing, how big it is, and go, aren't you glad we don't live in the days of the first ever fossil records of a dragonfly? 4-foot wingspan coming along with those fierce mandibles wanting to chow down on whatever it can catch. I'm glad we don't have those guys around. Personally, it'd be cool to see one, but in a cage or something, I don't know. Beautiful, beautiful dragonfly. I love these guys when you can find them. So this is the common green darner I mentioned. So they all have their different ways. You can see here they're joined. She's ovipositing. They land on vegetation floating in the water, and she goes up under the vegetation to lay the eggs underneath the vegetation. I've actually seen them like land on sticks, and it's like the male just goes, or she's really controlling it. So she's wanting to kind of keep going along this one. I've got a good perch here. I'm laying my eggs. I'm going to keep going back and back. I've seen the female completely submerged. The male's just there, and they're kind of going back, back, back till she's completely under the water laying eggs before they come back out and take off and go look for another spot to lay more eggs. So we're sitting here watching this. I'm standing next to, everybody knows Sam Kieschnick, I'm assuming. Standing here next to Sam Kieschnick, and all of a sudden, the circle of life. Sam got that picture because I had just taken that previous one and looked down to make sure I got a good shot. And I hear a splash, and I look up and go, tell me you got that shot. He's like, yeah, I think I did. So he did. There it is. So some great resources here I just wanted to point out. You've got to have these two books about Texas. If you're going to do dragonflies in Texas, you have to. It's not even a question. Those are the two you want. And then this is a great one. It's all of the east. So you're going to want the east one because it covers pretty much all of Texas. West covers really just a small line over to the west side of Texas, like basically a line of the panhandle down and west. So the east is the one you'd want to get by Paulson. I have them both. They're great resources. iNaturalist, of course, if you're not on iNaturalist and you haven't heard of iNaturalist, whichever, come see me after. I want to chide you. OdonataCentral.org is kind of considered the scientific repository of sightings for dragonflies. Also the sponsor then of the Dragonfly Society of the Americas. Yes, there is one, and yes, I'm a member. But Odonata Central, or OC, we call it, is the kind of the place where I tend to only put things on there like at the first county record or something, first time I've seen it for a county, what have you. It's become much more user-friendly, only in like last 2 years where you can now import from iNaturalist. So I'm trying to go back and do some of my older stuff, but that's where you can go in and pull up charts for historical records like before iNaturalist, where you had to have a picture where you have like, here's a museum species record. It's kept somewhere of this one. So that's there. I have these books and a couple of others up here on the table. If you want to look at them, you're welcome to come and look at them. Don't take them, you'll make me cry. You don't want to see a grown man cry, do you? So questions? So thank you very much. If you want to reach out to me, feel free. There's my email. And again, Brentano on iNaturalist. I'm on there, not quite, well, I guess pretty much close to every day, at least looking at stuff. So feel free to reach out to me on there as well.
Thank you so much. I heard that there are lots of comments online. This has been a great program.